Welcome to the Calder Farmstead.
Now the Ice Hawks back out to center in transition. Carlson with Quenneville 2-on-1. Right with Carlson from the Quenneville scores.
Here's a chance for Perrin. Fighting scores! Off the face-off! Up in Zeminger. Pulled back to Werenski. Has it. Shoots one. Bounces off a man. 5 seconds left. Werenski. Another jam on the shot. Turning and firing. They go! They score! They score! Now they catch each other and they both go right over the top. Matching rights to one another. McDermott gets the helmet off of Cassie.
And now, with 9 minutes gone in overtime, the Bears breaking out right side with Bear. Looks like cutting to the net. Bear will score!
And here are your hosts, Cece and Sean.
Hello and greetings from the Mile High city of Denver, Colorado.
And Toronto, Ontario, Canada.
Hey, welcome to the Calder Farmstead Podcast, episode number 50 for Friday, October 1st, 2021. If you're hoping for a podcast featuring a discussion of the agricultural manufacturers of Canada's upcoming convention and trade show, we are not going to be much help. This is an American Hockey League podcast, and my name is CC Hockley, the AHL editor of Full Press Hockey.
And I'm Sean O'Brien from Stats Track and the AHL's only league-wide analytics guy.
And as always, we thank you for tuning in with us.
If you're new to hearing CC and I talk about hockey, we're going to preview some of the teams from Canada in the AHL's upcoming 21-22 season. We both watch a lot of AHL games, so we're going to talk about what we see when we watch the film, as well as use some advanced stats to help us break it down. If that's new to you, you might want to head over to our podcast feed or YouTube channel, wherever you're listening to us from, and check out episode 0. It's a short primer on some of the more advanced stats that we're going to be talking about, as well as how we view what's important on the ice. So if you're new to some of the more advanced hockey stats terms, like the point shares model, or newer hockey terms like controlled zone entries, go check that out, so you better be able to pick up what we're putting down. I promise it isn't that nerdy or technical. It's only 20 minutes. And let's be honest, you wasted 20 minutes today trying to figure out if anyone really did recognize Mick Jagger outside a dive bar in Charlotte, North Carolina. You'll never get that time back. So why not spend a little more time next time talking hockey with us?
Quick note before we begin. We are doing a contest and giving away not 1, not 2, but 3 free AHL TV team packages. So to enter, go to our Linktree page, linktr.ee/the Calder Farmstead. Once again, that's link Tango Romeo.echo/the Calder Farmstead, and click on the AHL TV giveaway button for instructions on how to enter. All right, let's get started with episode number 50. Today we're previewing the Laval Rocket, Toronto Marlies, and the Belleville Senators, all back in their appropriate North Division after spending a season in the Canadian division due to the COVID-19 pandemic and the nice international border between the United States and Canada. So let's get right to it. First and foremost, the Rocket de Laval. Forgive me for my lack of a French-Canadian accent, but I'll do my best. So the Laval Rocket head coach Jean-François Houle, his first season after their former head coach
Joelle Bouchard.
Joelle Bouchard having a brain fart, apparently. Yeah. Let's stay focused and regroup. Okay, Joelle Bouchard, yes, heading over to the San Diego Gulls. So Jean-François Houle stepping in as the bench boss for this season for the Rocket. 2021 record, one of the best teams in the AHL. 23-9, 3-1, .694 points percentage. Clearly good for first in the Canadian division out of 5 teams last year. And like I mentioned earlier, this year, they're heading back to the North Division. Their affiliation for 2021, of course, in the NHL is the Montreal Canadiens, but debuting in the ECHL this season is Trois-Rivières, the Lions. So they have an ECHL affiliate again. 72 games scheduled for the Laval Rocket this year, and let's talk additions and subtractions. So joining the Rocket this season, Cedric Derousseau, Justin Ducharme, Gabriel Bourque coming back over from Europe, I believe, Kevin Poulin, Carl Neal, Danik Martel, Charles David Baudouin, Alexander Fortin coming over from the Colorado Eagles, Tori Dello, Sean St. Amant, former Colorado Eagle as well, Jake Lucchini, Peter Abbandonato, Brandon Gignac, there we go. JC Baudin, hey, guess what? Another Colorado Eagle. Kevin Waugh, Jean-Sebastian Day, Louis Belpedio, and Michael Pezzetta. That's a lot of Quebecois coming over to Laval. Wonder why. Subtractions, Vasily Demchenko in goal, in net. Terrence Amorosa, Otto Leskinen, forgive me. Yannick Velo, Jordan Wheel, Nathaniel Halbert, and Liam Howell. So not nearly as many subtractions that I found as much as additions. So let's talk forwards, those coming in, and those that have stuck with the team from last year. First off, a new addition that I mentioned just a moment ago, Jean-Sebastian Day. Now, Day looked to find his groove in Rochester last season, so it was surprising to see him leave, but then he signed with his hometown team, and it clicked. Once again, you'll find a lot of Quebecois on this list. Day has good playmaking vision for the AHL level. I like his puck skills, but they won't wow you. His ability to find open ice in the offensive zone is impressive, though he's better. He's a better playmaker than a sniper. His skating isn't the best, and explain why he gets cups of coffee in the NHL, but never really sticks. Defensively, though, he is responsible, but I wouldn't call him a 200-foot player. Next up, imagine this, another former Colorado Eagle, Alex Belzeau. Belzeau is another that has decent skill, but is a worker and fit into the relentless attack that was Laval's game plan last season. He's got good puck skills and is a better playmaker than a shooter, albeit he has above average AHL shooting talent. His skating is around average. His work ethic is solid, though, and he isn't afraid to be physical. Defensively, he is responsible, so you can't ask much more from a forward than that, at least on an average level. Joelle Tiesdale. Teasdale shook off any concerns I had last season about his knee injury slowing him down. His skill set is less flashy and more blunt. He's a no-nonsense physical forward who throws his body around. He has good hockey IQ and forechecks well despite not having great skating skill. His puck skills and playmaking vision are impressive, especially given that he often finds himself in tight quarters. He has some shooting talent, but is not a sniper. Defensively, he's also responsible and can be effective in his own end. I think much like last season, he can be effective in a middle six role. Laurent Dauphin. Dauphin fits in so well with the Rockets' relentless forechecking scheme last year, as it perfectly matched his skill set. He's got a high hockey IQ to be able to read plays and see moves ahead, as well as a solid work ethic. He's physical, gritty, and an excellent forechecker despite not being the best skater. The rest of his offensive toolkit is right around average, as he has puck skills and playmaking vision, but they aren't anything exceptional. He's a decent shooter and could probably score 20 goals in a full season if he had shooting volume. Defensively, he's solid, as his work ethic and grinding mentality plays well with his anticipation of play. We'll see if he can replicate last season's results with a new coach, but I'm hopeful, as he was fun to watch last year. All right, moving on to Ryan Poehling. Poehling puts himself back on the map last season after a disappointing showing in 1920. I like his hockey IQ, and I think it covers for a fair amount of deficits in other areas of his skill set, which I don't think are that impressive. He's not a great skater, and I don't see an offensive skill set that moves the needle. He's got impressive work ethic and can make plays in tight and in high danger areas, but he needs line mates to help him get to those places, especially as he's not good in transition, as he often carries the puck out in front of himself and instead of on his hip, and it makes him vulnerable to poke checks. Defensively, he's an asset in his own zone and kills penalties effectively. I think he's a top six forward in the AHL, especially if he plays wing instead of center, but he needs the right chemistry with his line mates to make it so. Kevin Waugh. So Waugh has a lot of offensive talent and has been a force when he's on the ice in the AHL for a while. His production doesn't jump off the page as he's battled through injuries throughout his professional career, but his offensive skill set is impressive. He has great puck skills and his creative playmaking vision that can set up teammates for tap-ins. He can shoot, but is primarily a pass-first player. His speed isn't great, and it's unlikely he adds a gear at age 28. Defensively, he's not the best, but far from a liability. I think he's a big get for this Rocket team, as he's a proven playmaker who can be a first liner pretty much anywhere in the AHL. And don't correct me if I'm wrong. He played for Tucson last year.
He did play for Tucson last year. He was
Yes.
one of the few consistent elements on an otherwise all over the place, up and down Jekyll and Hyde Tucson team last year. It was him and Michael Carcone, who was a Nashville product that was in Tucson. Yeah. Tucson had a very strange team last year.
It really was. The only time that they won 2 games or more in a row was February when the season started. So that just goes to show you how inconsistent they were. But yeah, Kevin Waugh, great addition to the Laval Rocket coming over from the Tucson Roadrunners. All right, let's talk about Raphael Harvey Pinard. I've always had a soft spot for players like Harvey Pinard. He's a good skater who has excellent burst, but isn't the most skill, as his offensive skill set is average-ish at best. But he's the guy who turns the gas pump handle upside and jiggles the hose when he's finished pumping gas. He gets everything he can from the skill set that he has been given. He forechecks hard and throws his body around with reckless abandon. He fits Joelle Bouchard's fast-paced, in-your-face forecheck until you die system so well. And part of me is concerned he won't fit what JF Houle has planned, but I'm rooting for Harvey Pinard this season in what I hope will be a middle 6 role. Next up, we've got Jesse Yolonan. I have a love-hate relationship with the Yolonan's game. I love his skill set. He's got very good skating. He can make plays under pressure and is creative with his playmaking. His shooting talent is above average. There is a lot to like here. He ends up on the score sheet, but nowhere near as often as a player of his ilk should. A lot of it is just consistency and work ethic that underwhelms me. I'm hoping that Jean-Francois Houle can get more out of him this season, as he doesn't belong in the AHL based on his skills, and yet checks in at a middle 6 AHL forward. Lastly, Jan Mysak. Not a great season for Mysak last year, but he's very young still, so that juniors to AHL struggle was foreseeable. One of the most difficult transitions in the game of hockey in North America, as we've covered. Mysak is a speedster who doesn't take shifts off. He can turn corners on AHL defensemen and is an excellent forechecker. Offensively, he has a skill set that's fine, but not one that jumps off the page and is more average than anything. He has decent puck skills that flash once in a while and can deke defenders one-on-one, but he tries very often to pull off those dekes, which often mean more turnovers. Defensively, he's inconsistently good. I've seen games of his that he'll read the play well and anticipate play well and jump passes like he's Ed Reed. But I've seen games that he's just kind of floating on the ice. Overall, he needs seasoning in the AHL, and I think he should approach the middle 6 minutes, but I wouldn't start him with more until he shows that he can handle it and produce. Those are some of the Laval Rocket forwards that stuck out to us going into the season. Let's talk Blue Liners with Sean O'Brien.
I mean, we're going to start with the most familiar name there probably is in Rocket franchise history, and that's Xavier Ouellette. Ouellette comes back for his 4th season in Laval, which he will surely spend a dozen or so games in Montreal, as he kind of seems to every year. Offensively, he's got decent puck skills and playmaking vision, but he lacks dynamic elements that would separate him from his peers and have him stick more in the show. He generates offense the way defensemen did 10 years ago, too. Point shots, assists off passes in the neutral zone, or quick passes to wide open guys on the half wall of the power play. That's not to say that those passes don't have value, but I wish he'd evolve his game a bit, especially given that he has an above-average AHL skating ability. He definitely could add joining the rush more, activating off the blue line into the slot during the cycle, not just firing pucks at the net from distance, but working for better real estate to shoot from. Defensively, his transition defense isn't great, as he keeps looser gaps in the neutral zone and over the blue line more often than I'd like to see. I still think he's a top pair option for the Rocket this season, but I think it would be better if he was on the second pair and on power play too. Josh Brooke is a guy I feel like who's been in the Canadian system forever. He was drafted in 2017 and has 100 AHL games under his belt, so maybe that's not that unfounded. Brooks' game is balanced, and he's made some progress, I think. He found more offense last season, but part of me questions how much that will stick given last season's circumstances compared to his offensive skill set. And his offensive skill set is fine. It whelms, He can move the puck out of his zone and get transition started. He's got decent puck skills and playmaking vision. He's not a good shooter, but he's mobile and can skate. Defensively, he's okay-ish, which I think is an improvement from previous seasons where he leaned heavily towards being bad, especially defending rush chances as he get too far over his skates, lunging for poke checks, and then just, end up on the wrong end of a highlight reel. I think he's someone whose minutes still need to be managed a bit, but should be a fine second-pair defenseman for the Rockets. Toby, Packett, Basson, I think has more offense to his game than showed up on the score sheet last season. He's a decent skater for a guy his size and can be effective in transition. I saw him spearhead the rush a time or two in Laval and think he should do that more often as it seems to suit his skills well. His puck skills are decent and he can make some plays in the O-zone. He's an okay shooter. Defensively, he's solid but unspectacular. Now, maybe I'm over-evaluating a limited skill set here and a smaller sample, but I like what I saw from him last year, and I think he could be a sneaky sleeper on the blue line this season. One that will not be a sleeper is Louis Belpedio. I'm surprised that Belpedio's offensive totals have managed to be as consistent as they are, given that I don't think he has that solid of an offensive skill set. He's somewhere in the neighborhood of AHL average for puck skills, playmaking vision, and shooting talent. His biggest weapon, though, is his skating ability, which is solid. He can not only join the rush, but with his speed, he can spearhead it. Defensively, his skating allows him to make stops in the neutral zone and in his defensive zone. He's physical and lays the body despite being average-sized. I think he's best off in the middle pair and killing penalties, but he's also shown that he can serve on the power play. Giovanni Fairbrother got 3 whole games in the AHL this past season before the WHL called him home. That's not much to go on in terms of how his game translates to the AHL, but his skill set from juniors has some appeal. Offensively, there's some puck skills and playmaking vision, but not a ton. He's an above average-ish skater. Most of the value comes from his defensive skill set. He has good defensive awareness and breaks up a lot of plays in zone. He's physical and can grind down forwards without spending too much time in the box. I think he needs some AHL seasoning to get up to speed with the pro game and iron out some more offensive skills, but should be a useful bottom 4 defenseman this season who can kill penalties. Last, but certainly not least, as I know he's an intriguing prospect to a lot of Montreal fans, is Kaden Gooly. After missing most of last season due to injury, the Gooly man looks to make his mark as a quote-unquote rookie in Laval. I don't expect him to end up on the score sheet that often in Laval, as I don't think a good portion of his offense from juniors transfers over. Mostly because I don't think he has the puck skills or playmaking vision that a solid offensive-minded defenseman has. His shooting talent is solid, though. He's good in transition and can and will join the rush with his good skating. Defensively, though, Gooly's a stud. He's able to step up and kill plays in the neutral zone. He uses his stick well to break up passes. He's physical and mostly stays out of penalty trouble. If he can find some offense in the AHL, I think he's got potential to break out, but I think he's best suited to middle or bottom pair and killing penalties to at least start the season. I think some seasoning is going to be necessary for him to make that transition from juniors to pro, which we've talked about ad nauseum through these previews of what those struggles are like when, you're not playing high schoolers anymore. So
go ahead, Sean.
That's the defense. Tell me about the voodoo that they will do in French Canada, CC.
Yes. Before I get into goaltending, I will say Belpedio playing for a very stout Iowa Wild offense probably had a lot to do with his consistency, and hopefully he can carry that over to Laval.
I think there was some of it was that, but he also fit very well in the role they gave him. And I mean, I'm not as familiar with JF Hull's approach to systems and stuff like that. We'll probably see more of that as the season goes on. But if he can put Belpedio in those spots where he was so useful in Iowa, leading the rush, being effective in his own zone, I think you probably won't see him match the 47 points he put up 2 years ago. But I don't think 35 or a 35-point pace, I should say, from him, God knows how many games he plays, is out of the question.
All right. Now to goaltending. Let's talk about the netminders up in Quebec. Kaden Primeau, of course. Never thought Kaden Primeau was the Habs goalie of the future, as many others have and still do. I think that the Habs organization believed in him, though, and would eventually get him to the NHL. Now, after that Jake Allen extension and him being a restricted free agent after this year, it's tough to say. Primeau, his game is based on his ability to read the play at a high level and identify threats, get square to them, and make the best save selections. Athletically, Primeau is not the best as he struggles to make tougher saves when plays break down. He's logged 2 seasons of being an above-average AHL goaltender, and I expect more of the same from him this season. Next up, we have Michael McNiven. McNiven now has 71 AHL starts under his belt, all with Laval. I think the writing is on the wall for McNiven at this point. He is a very useful AHL backup who will hover in the neighborhood of league average numbers. And that tracks as his skill set is pretty average and lacks any higher end elements to it. He tracks the puck fine, he moves fine, his athleticism is fine, all right around league average. Pretty fine. And the assessment of his game as average isn't some slap in the face or anything. Teams need average goalies to be dependable backups or 1B starters at best. Lastly, we have Kevin Poulin. Last time we saw Kevin Poulin for more than a cup of coffee in the AHL was 15-16 with the Stockton Heat. In between then and now, he's had 7 starts in the AHL, split between Grand Rapids and Ontario, and then he apparently tried to play in every single Euro Pro League possible. 43 games in the DEL in Germany, 22 in the EBEL in Austria, 14 in the KHL in Russia, 2 in the Swiss National League, and 30 in Allsvenskan in Sweden. All that is between 16-17 and 20-21. Talk about making a Euro trip. My goodness. All that's to say that he's been a serviceable goalie in those places for the most part, and I think he'll push McNiven for starts behind Primeau. Maybe serve as a veteran mentor to those two, but that's it. It sure does help that they have that shiny new ECHL team in Trois-Rivières. So let's talk outcomes. We've covered all the individual players. It's time to talk best case scenario. Shawnee, take it away.
Best case scenario, the Rocket have a deep forward and defensive group that can weather injury and call up blitzes. While the defense lacks star power, it makes up for it in solid depth. If Kaden Primeau can take a step forward in his development and go from like a solidly above average to, top 5 starter in the AHL, this team could truck through the North. Best case scenario, I'd say 87 points for a 60.59 points percentage. That's a North Division title and 5th best in the AHL. CC, let's get sad. Tell me worst case scenario for Laval here.
As the pendulum swings, so do the scenarios on the Calder Farmstead. Worst case scenario, if the goaltending tandem continues to be good but not great, and Laval can't recapture the intensity of last year's team, they should still have enough depth in a weaker division to be competitive. Worst case scenario, they finish with 79 points for a 54.69 points percentage and a 3rd place divisional finish. Not too shabby. 1st to 3rd, let's find the middle ground. Let's see what the most likely scenario is for the Laval Rocket.
The model currently has them projected for 85.99 points this season for a 59.71% points percentage. While I loved the team last season, and I think a lot of otherwise middle 6 guys just clicked with their line mates, as well as the emphasis on forechecking and relentless pressure that the Rocket had last year. I'm taking the under on the model because while I think Houle is a good coach, I don't think he's going to find that same chemistry they had last year. I'm going to say 82 points for a 56.94% points percentage and a 2nd place finish in the North Division.
Still not too shabby.
Yeah, that's still a very good season.
Absolutely.
We're going to take a quick break here, and when we get back, we will talk Toronto Marlies and Belleville Senators season previews. If you just wanted to hear about Laval in English and not in French, neither of us speak French, I think that would be bad. Thank you for stopping by. Don't forget to subscribe wherever listening to us from so you get episodes in a timely fashion. Also, check us out on social media. We're on Facebook and Instagram at The Calder Farmstead and Twitter at Calder Farmstead. We're also doing a contest and giving away 3 free AHL TV team packages. To enter, go to our Linktree page, linktr.ee/The Calder Farmstead. That's linktr.ee/The Calder Farmstead. and you'll see the AHL TV giveaway buttons. Click on the button that says Video Explainer. That'll tell you all the things you need to do. And then the links there are ones you need to go click on and push buttons, and it's great. It should take you like 15 minutes at the very most to get entered all across all three. We will be right back to talk about the Baby Leafs. Stay tuned.
Alrighty, we talked about the prospect Habs, the baby Habs, as it were, and now we're going to shift over a province to Ontario and talk about the Baby Leafs, the Toronto Marlies, for our second of three teams here in this small North Division preview. We've got some other North Division teams that we've already previewed. So we're wrapping up our North Division preview. Got all the teams covered. So hey, making some progress before the AHL season starts. All right, head coach Greg Moore, second full season with the club. He was named bench boss in December of 2019. And mid-season. 2021 record, 16-17-0-2, .486 points percentage, fourth out of five teams in the Canadian division last year. And 21-22, they're heading back to the North Division. Affiliations, still the Toronto Maple Leafs in the NHL, and still, a returning Newfoundland Growlers into the ECHL in the North Division over there for the 21-22 season. Game scheduled is 72. Let's talk additions and subtractions. Ryan Chizowski, the forward. Ben Finkelstein, forward. Curtis Douglas, forward. Jack Kopacka, forward. Matt Hellickson, defenseman. Mark Michaelis, Matteo Petronio. Matteo Petronio. There we go. Keith Petruzzelli. Goodness. Marcus Power, Zach O'Brien. They are additions, but they're familiar to the program. Brendan Metal, acquired in a trade with the Minnesota Wild organization. Kirill Semenov, Eric Kalgren, Pontus Holmberg, Michael Amadio, Alex Biega, Carl Dahlstrom, and Brett Senny, coming over from the New Jersey Devils organization, played with Binghamton last year. Subtractions: Scott Poulin, Kenny Agostino, Cal Casilla, Martin Marincin. Thank you, sir. Zach Trott, Veni Vehelainen. Hey, I got that right. Pavel Gogolev, Angus Redmond, the man they call Beef, Tyler Gaudette, Stefan Nosen, and Cal Rosen. Okay, well, I probably got a C- on that pronunciation guide, but hey, let's go into the forwards and see how Sean fares.
Also, quick correction here. Pavel Gogolev is not a subtraction. He is very much still on the Marlies.
Oh, well, I must have misread that. So thanks for the correction. I was the one who populated that list. So maybe I got my names mixed up and too much time spent on cap-friendly and elite prospects. So thanks for the correction, Sean.
Yep, no worries. I know that because Pavel Gogolev is the first forward we're going to talk about.
Well, would you look at that? Yeah, I populated that list before you populated that recap. So go ahead, bud.
All right. So Gogolev looked solid in his limited debut for the Marlies last season, reuniting with some Peterborough teammates Nick Robertson and Semyon Argachintsev. There's a lot to like about his offensive game. While not a great skater, he plays fast. He's got good puck skills. He can shoot off both feet, off bad passes, and can find soft ice in dangerous areas. I'd like to see his game develop as he realized that he wasn't fast enough to turn I liked seeing his game develop, rather, when he realized he wasn't fast enough to turn corners on AHL defensemen and began to pull up on rush chances and find trailers and create scoring chances that way instead of always trying to go shoulder down in a pretty hopeless effort to turn a corner. Defensively, he has some ability, but he still needs a lot of refining on reading the play in his own end. There are definitely moments where he's 2 strides away from making a defensive zone stop, and he just doesn't put forth the effort to finish the play. All in all, I like Gogolev's game, but I don't love it. I think his flaming hot debut from last season calms down, but he should still be a useful scoring contributor for the Marlies this season, but I don't expect him to carry a heavy load for the offense. I expect Nick Robertson to carry a heavier load for the offense, as he's an absolute weapon with the puck on his stick in the offensive zone. That much is obvious. If you've watched him play for 30 seconds, you're like, oh yeah, that guy's dangerous. His skill set is just dripping with talent. And while most see his John Wick-like shooting talent, he can also dish the puck and deke defenders as well. His hockey IQ is also very high as he anticipates passing lanes without the puck and finds ways to get open. His work ethic is also underrated, as I think he hustles pretty hard all over the ice, which he has to do because, well, his skating mechanics aren't that great. They keep him from being more effective in the neutral zone, as well as from being a bigger weapon on the rush, because he doesn't have enough offensive talent already. He should be able to skate super fast as well, I think. Defensively, he does just enough to not get noticed, but won't be asked to kill penalties or defend 1-goal leads late. I think Robertson splits time between the Leafs and Marlies, hopefully not getting yo-yoed too hard, but for however long he's on the Marlies, he's a bona fide first liner and a threat to score every time his steel touches the ice. Adam Brooks feels like he's been on the verge of being a point per game player for the Marlies for 3 seasons now, but every time seems to fall just short. He can finish around the net and has some shooting talent. His skating is below average, though, and that gets him pushed to the perimeter too often for my liking. Defensively, he's solid and can be an asset in his own end. I don't think this is the year Brooks becomes a top AHL player, but I think he comes closer to a point per game forward for the Marlies. Joey Anderson had a solid year for the Marlies after being chased out of the Devils organization. Anderson showed his offensive upside last season, but I think his production comes more from skating and work ethic than outright skill. That's not to say he doesn't have offensive skills, but I think his skill set leans more to being average than anything. Anderson's primary value comes from his work ethic and skating ability. Like I said, he's a terrific forechecker who's able to put pressure on puck carriers. He's also a capable penalty killer and is reliable in his own defensive zone. I could see him carving out a role as a complementary piece to a more offensive-minded line mates in the top 6 or as a leader on a checking line. Either way, he should be on PK1 this season. Antti Suomela comes over from the Barracuda after a trade towards the end of last season. Personally, I like to be pro Suomela, but I see both sides. Suomela has a slightly above average skill set that's very much jack of all trades, master of none. He does a lot of little details well that I like. He attacks the center lane on the rush. He gets his stick in passing lanes on defense. He's a capable playmaker with decent puck skills. He doesn't fold under pressure and can make clean passes with defenders hanging on him. Defensively, he puts in the effort in his own end as a capable 200-foot player who can kill penalties. And that's something that should be a staple of every top 6 in the AHL if you can find him. As it has been said in hockey culture many times, when it comes to scoring goals, they don't ask how, they ask how many. And in that case, Mike Amadio was glad because he's the absolute master of scoring ugly goals. He's not a good skater. His puck skills are kind of limited. He can make plays in tight and has decent playmaking vision. He has some shooting talent, but his mechanics are very inconsistent. His hockey IQ is decent, though, and he has a nose for the net, and rebounds and loose pucks in the slot just find him. Defensively, he's pretty responsible and can play a 200-foot game, but I think he's going to need good line mates to be productive. But he continues to find ways to get on the score sheet in the AHL and is one of the most stark examples of like a tweener player where he's never been anybody of note in the NHL, but seems to find ways to make it happen in the AHL in the ugliest way possible. But, you know, like I said, they don't ask how, they ask how many.
There you go.
Mikhail Abramov is a very fun player to watch. His skill set is diverse and is powered by a high hockey IQ that knows how to bait defenders into mistakes using deception and looking off goaltenders and defensemen. He's a better playmaker than a shooter, but he can shoot. His skating is around average, but he can play with pace. He's listed at 172 pounds, which, given a 6-foot frame, is a bit light and also help explain why he's better in space than down low or in tight. His hockey IQ isn't just limited to the offensive zone, as he's good but not great at reading the play and intercepting passes or making well-timed stick lifts. On the right line pairing, I could see him go off this season for the Marlies in the top 6, but I think there's a chance he gets pushed further down the lineup due to there being a number of cooks in this Marlies kitchen. And then comes Semyon Durargachintsev. I don't know if I've ever seen a prospect have such an unbalanced skill set. Most players are okay at a few things, bad at a few, good at a few, give or take. Semyon Durargachintsev is very much not those players. His game has elite skills and crappy ones, and that's basically it. elite skills, his puck skills and playmaking vision are very high end for sure. He may have the best puck skills of anyone in the AHL this season. His playmaking vision is also insanely good, and he can find open teammates and get passes through tight lanes. He's taken a bit to get used to the timing of the pro game, but the underlying skills are definitely there. Defensively, he reminds me of Datsuk and his ability to just strip opponents from pucks with just beautifully timed stick checks or straight up robbery from behind. Crappy skills, that includes his skating, which is below average, as he just doesn't have the power in his stride to find a top speed that even approaches average. His one-timer is above average, but the rest of his shooting mechanics are hot garbage. Lastly, he's one of the least physical players I've seen since Durando of the Sound Tigers in Bridgeport. Sorry, the island of Bridgeport. A fair portion of that is weighing in at a whole 165 pounds, which is probably about 15 pounds too light, especially as he doesn't skate well. In his defense, he does seem to have put on some muscle since the end of last season, and he'll never be a power forward, but some bulking up and adding power to his game, I think, would help a fair amount. I think ultimately he's a middle six center for the Marlies this year and probably produces in that range, but you could honestly tell me he finished anywhere from 1st to 10th in scoring on the Marlies, and I'd believe it. Rodion Amirov, his game begins and ends with skating. He's got beautiful form in his stride and has burst as well as high-end edge work. Not shockingly, his skating lends itself to his best offensive skill, transition. He can take pucks from his blue line and weave through the neutral zone and blast past defenders on the outside or cut back and attack the middle. While his playmaking vision has certainly developed more this past season, he has more of that Han Solo shoot-first mentality, which is fine as he's an above-average shooter. However, his shot selection leaves me wanting more as he fires hopeless shots from distance too often for my liking. While he has a ton of raw skill, his hockey IQ and processing speed lag behind. They aren't bad per se, but his hands and feet move faster than his brain does at this point. And while that's improved recently, he should get at least a season down with the Marlies to work on it more and get up to that pro-level speed. Defensively, he's capable and can create turnovers in the defensive zone. I think he's a solid line mate for Durag Achintsev as their abilities seem to complement each other well, but I think a second line role for him on the Marlies is an ideal landing spot. While there are still plenty of other forwards that we could talk about on the Marlies, this seems like a good place to leave it and switch gears and go defense. CC, who will be manning the blue line of note for the Marlies this season?
Well, we've got a few more men to talk about, and first and foremost, Brendan Menl. Brendan Menl. Ah, that was a stretch. I know. Wah, wah, wah. Oh, if you saw the face that Sean just made, boy, he had a sour look. All right, I'll keep my day job. Wow, J-Dob. Keep my J-Dob. Brendan Menl coming over from the Iowa Wild, traded over to Toronto from, like I said, the Minnesota Wild organization. He left that organization and hit up Russia last season, where he was still a solid offensive-minded defenseman. I don't expect much to change this season, as I think he'll mostly pick up where he left off, just racking up points. He's got a solid defensive toolkit. Menl's got very good puck skills and playmaking vision, especially on the power play. His hockey IQ is also very high and allows him to see moves ahead. He's an average shooter, but he can be counted on to put a few home each season. His biggest problem has been his skating, which, while he's not a bad skater, he lacks the explosiveness and top speed you'd want to see, especially from a defenseman with his offensive abilities. Defensively, he's pretty solid and can break up plays with his stick as well as be physical. He should be a solid number one defenseman for the Marlies this year and might even sneak into a few Leafs games. Next up, we've got Timothy Liliagrin. Liliagrin feels like he's been in the Toronto organization forever, and yet he is still only feeling 22. His game is still based on skating and the ability to jumpstart transition with his feet and jump-started with his feet and with a great stretch pass into the neutral zone. His offensive toolkit is also solid. He's an effective playmaker and can draw defenders to him to set up teammates in the offensive zone, and he's got smooth puck skills to maneuver and find them with crisp passes. He uses fakes and deception well with his shot, which is useful as he's not that good a shooter. Defensively, he's able to read the play at a high level and break up passes. However, he often overcommits to blocking passing lanes instead of being more aggressive in killing plays. He's still a bona fide number one do-it-all D-man for the Marlies, but I think this is the year he gets an extended look with the Maple Leafs. Joseph Duszak, obviously there's a lot to like about Duzak's game. In the offensive zone, he is a threatening shooter that uses his shot not just to try and beat goaltenders, but has his head up, looking to shoot for teammates' sticks for tips or to generate rebounds. He also attacks off the blue line into the slot for shooting opportunities, which I like a lot. He also uses the threat of his shot to set up passes in the offensive zone. He's also skilled in transition and makes great first passes that cut through forecheckers. His biggest weakness is skating, as he has an inconsistent stride and lacks explosiveness. His second biggest weakness is defense. He's not an intense defender when engaged with puck carriers and loses his responsibility off puck too often for my liking. He has power play upside for the Marlies, but needs to make improvements to his overall game before he's getting sent over the boards blindly. Philip Kral, the former Spokane Chiefs D-man, snuck into 10 games at the end of the season for the Marlies last year and struggled, but I don't think that's too concerning. He is most valuable in transition on both sides of the puck. Offensively, his ability to beat the first forechecker is excellent. Defensively, he defends the blue line very well. The rest of his skill set is average and appears to be a jack of all trades, master of none. Defensively, he's inconsistently good in his own zone. I've seen games of his where he holds his own and breaks up plays, and others where he looks like he's caught puck watching and gets scored on. I think Kral starts this season lower on the Marlies depth chart as he needs some seasoning, but he isn't a liability anywhere, and that has value in transition. Well, he also has value in transition is what I meant. Mac Hollowell. Hollowell looked like he started to develop more confidence last season as he struggled with it before the end of 2021. Hollowell's confidence and looking like he's afraid to make a mistake has certainly stifled his offensive output. Hollowell at his best uses his elite skating to jump into and spearhead the rush. Offensively, Hollowell's skill set is fine, but things seem to click better when his feet are moving. Whether across the blue line, down the wall, or through the slot, if his feet are moving, he's a better player. He has a decent shot and puck skills, and I don't think the OHL offensive numbers will ever follow him into the pro game, but he still has enough skill to be a top contributor across the AHL. Defensively, he's solid at defending his blue line and can break up plays. He's not very physical and rarely takes the body. He's okay at winning battles along the wall or in front, but I wouldn't call him good at it. Overall, he should be a useful bottom four defenseman for the Marlies this season, and that is the last D-man for the Marlies that we are going to be covering for this episode. 2 groups down, 1 group to go. Net minding, let's talk goalies. Shawnee.
Is this going to be a Michael Hutchinson redemption story? I mean, it really is amazing how much he was hated by Leafs Nation at the end of 1920, only to show up again and be fine in 2021 in a limited sample. In a Marlies jersey, I expect Hutch to be what he's been in the AHL forever at this point. A goalie that's probably too good for this league. He reads the play well, moves well, his structure is solid. His problem at times has been consistency, but you see those flare up more at the NHL than in the AHL. Again, I expect Hutch to be, for the Marlies, what he's been for years, a top-tier AHL starting goaltender, and I don't think that the Maple Leafs are going to mess with him too much, but for more than a spot start or two, or like to suit up for an injury, but I expect him to be with the Marlies doing just that, being a stud. Joseph Woll, not exactly what the season you were hoping for Joseph Woll in 2021. He has a lot of the raw tools you would want in a goaltender, though. He's got an above-average size frame paired with high-end athleticism that allows him to explode post-to-post and make highlight reel saves. He struggled with tracking pucks, reading play, and being efficient in his movement, though, and that's led to a lot of the raw tools he does possess seemingly go underutilized as the mental aspects of goaltending need improvement. I think he could be a useful 1B this season, but I worry about his future projections as a legit AHL starter and beyond. I genuinely feel bad for Ian Scott. After coming off a hip injury, Scott appears primed to miss up to 2 months with a groin injury after barely getting into a preseason game for Toronto earlier this week.
Oof.
Much in the same vein as Woll, Scott's a larger frame goalie with solid athleticism. I think Woll is the superior athlete, but Scott does a better job tracking pucks and reading play. It's impossible to say how much these injuries have taken a toll on Ian Scott's body, as groins and hips are pretty vital parts of a goaltender's ability to function. Hopefully he comes back and he pushes for playing time in Toronto, but I could also see him, picking up time in Newfoundland to, get it started when he does come back from injury. But yeah, I read that earlier in the week that he looked like he had a serious groin injury and was going to miss time. And I was like, Jesus, that kid cannot catch a break.
No.
So those are our three position groups: goalies, forwards, defensemen. Let's talk outcomes here. CC, best case scenario, what do the Marlies do this year?
Best case, a lot of the younger guys like Robertson and SDA take big jumps forward and fill out an already rather deep forward core. If Hutch can stay with the Marlies and give them the goaltending we expect, their best case scenario is 84 points and a 58.1 points percentage. That's good for second place in the North Division. Sean, as the pendulum swings, we talk now about the worst case scenario for the Marlies.
If the Leafs give extended looks to guys or get bit by injury bugs, the Marlies have depth, but it will definitely eat away at their production as a team. They should still be able to hold the fort down, but it won't be pretty. Worst case scenario is 76 points for a 52.74% points percentage and a fifth place divisional finish. CC, we talk best and worst. What does the model say?
Oh, it's only a model. Got to remember that. The model projects the Marlies for 80.85 points and a 56.14 points percentage. That's a third place finish in the North Division with a fair amount of space between them and second and them and fourth. While I'm going to take the under, as I think the Leafs pull enough call-ups to get cups of coffee in the big time. Oh, sorry. It's not a big under. I'm going with 78 points and a 54.17% points percentage, which is still good for third. And that's definitely well within the range of a playoff team in the North Division.
Oh, yeah, because now there's like 12 playoff teams in the North Division, despite there only being 7 teams.
Yeah, that's the AHL playoff format in 21-22. That's how we are.
AHL playoff format, sponsored by Cash App. We're going to take a break here, but right after the break, we will get to the Belleville Senators season preview. If you're just here for Toronto and their season preview, thank you for stopping by. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you're listening to us from so you get episodes in a timely fashion. Also, check us out on social media. We're on Facebook and Instagram at The Calder Farmstead and Twitter at Calder Farmstead. We're also giving away 3 free AHL TV team packages. To enter said contest for a free AHL TV team package, head over to our Linktree page, linktr.ee, linktr.ee/The Calder Farmstead. You'll see the AHL TV giveaway buttons that have instructions on how to enter, plus links to all the things you need to go click on. So go check that out if you'd like to not pay for AHL TV this year to watch the Marlies or whatever team you want to watch. We will be right back talking Belleville Senators.
We've covered the first team from the Ontario province, and we've covered one from Quebec. It's only fitting that we cover all 3 of the Canadian teams in the North Division and end with the Belleville Senators to wrap up our North Division previews for the Calder Farmstead 21-22 AHL season previews. So let's get started with the Baby Sens. Belleville Senators head coach Troy Mann entering his 4th season. 2021 record was 18-16-1-0, .529 points percentage, 3rd out of 5 teams in the Canadian division last year. And of course, they're jumping back to their normal and regularly scheduled division in the North this year. Affiliation for 2021. Ottawa and the NHL, and unfortunately, the Brampton Beasts are no longer a franchise in the ECHL. They folded and announced that last year. And so geographically, they picked the next closest ECHL team, of course, which is the Atlanta Gladiators. Oh, wait, That's a hell of a long ways away, and no, it's not. So definitely not adhering to the hypothetical geographic NHL, AHL, ECHL list that Sean made a couple years ago.
It's really fine. ECHL affiliations are made up.
Yes. Yeah. Maybe 1 or 2, 3 players jump back and forth, and yeah, they'll pull guys from the SPHL if they're really desperate, because that's where they're at, just right there in the Bible Belt. Anyway, all right, let's talk additions and subtractions. First and foremost, we've got Zach Leslie, defenseman, Tyrell Goulbourne, Xavier Bernard, goaltender Tyler Parks, Philip Gustafsson, Cole Sherwood and Scott Saberin, Dylan Hetherington, Pontus, help me with this, Sean. You told me earlier about it.
Aube. That is how it's pronounced in Sweden. It's not Auberg or Aberg. Aube.
Pontus Aube. Okay. Victor Lodin, Andrew Agazino, and Nick Holden from the Vegas Gold Knights / Henderson Silver Knights. Subtractions. There seems to be quite a few more subtractions than additions, but that's okay. They re-signed a bunch of guys. But let's get started. Logan Brown, Vitaly Abramov, Ollie Alsing, Hubert Labrie, Jonathan Davidson, Curtis Douglas, Joseph Labatt, Cole Castles, Olivier LeBlanc, Zach Magwood, Cedric Andre, Jack Doherty, Brandon Fortunato, Colby Golubev, Michael Amadio, headed over to Toronto, Jack Kopacki, Matthew Pekka, J.C. Baudin, who headed over to Laval, Andreas England, heading to the Colorado Eagles, Joey Decord, picked by Seattle in the expansion draft, and Marcus Hogberg. All right. Well, that was a pretty extensive list of subtractions, but let's talk about the guys who are staying put or joining the club. First and foremost, Andrew Agazino coming in from the San Diego Gulls. Agazino continues to be one of the more productive forwards in the AHL over the past few seasons. He is dangerous in the offensive zone and can shoot as well as set up teammates well with good puck skills and playmaking vision. His skating isn't great, but he can overcome that with his hockey IQ and other skills. He's also not afraid to go into the corners and battle in front, despite not being the biggest forward. His defensive game is good, but not great. Again, he's still one of the most consistent AHL top-line producers and will likely lead Belleville in points this season. Pontus Aube, thank you again for that pronunciation help, Sean. He's been making AHL defenders look dumb longer than the Belleville Senators have been a team. Aube has great puck skills and can shoot at an NHL level. He's strong in transition, in a sense. He's not the greatest skater, but his playmaking vision helps him find outlets under pressure to start the rush. In the offensive zone, he's great at finding soft ice and putting home shots from in tight. Defensively, he's not great, but given his scoring ability, I'm willing to let that go. He should be a top-line option for Belleville this season without a doubt. Igor Sokolove. Last season, we nicknamed Igor Sokolove T10 after the Russian heavy tank used in the 1960s. It was a big physical tank that could blast anything that it came across, but it wasn't very mobile. It was a fitting nickname because that's Sokolov's game. Of a heavy tank that's physical and can blast pucks past goaltenders with brute force. You won't see highlight reel saucer passes or tic-tac-toe setups from Sokolove, but crashing the net and being an immovable object in the slot and along the boards. Like the T10 tank, Sokolov's skating keeps him from being a primary puck carrier on the rush or in transition. With the right teammates, Sokolove could be a monster with his size, strength, and work ethic and shot velocity, but he's going to need to be paired with playmakers and good skaters to reach that top 6 production. All right, Roby Yarventi. Not too many teenagers get to play in the AHL thanks to the stupidest agreement the NHL ever made with the Canadian Hockey League. Yarventi's game is pretty balanced. It's a pretty balanced one as he has solid puck skills and playing vision. He has an okay shot and likely won't be making long-range snipes in the AHL, but he's able to finish in tight. He's a battler as well and can go into the corners and come out with the puck. He's not a good skater, though, and he struggles to play with pace, which makes me think he's going to not be the best out of the gates this season. Defensively, his game needs work, as he's not engaged very often in the defensive zone and gets caught puck watching. I think he could be an interesting piece this year for the B-Sens, but is very much a work in progress that has some offensive upside. Next, we have Logan Shaw. Much like the B-Sens in general, Shaw finished the season strong, potting 6 points in his last 8 games. Shaw's offensive skill set is just above average, with his shot standing out more than his puck skills or playmaking vision. His skating isn't great, even for a 6'4", 207-pound player. Defensively, he's solid, but isn't as physical or aggressive on pucks as I'd like from a guy his size. Coming over from the Cleveland Monsters, Cole Sherwood. It had to be a bit painful for Sherwood to not get a qualifying offer from his home state NHL team in Columbus, Ohio. Yikes. Sherwood comes to Canada with a good skill set, though. His skating and work ethic are his biggest strengths, as he got wheels and puts them to use early and often. He has good puck skills and can make plays in the offensive zone. His hockey IQ leaves me wanting, though, as without the puck, he often struggles to find openings and put himself in a good position to be a threat to score, which shows on his point totals. Defensively, he isn't great either, despite being a diligent worker. Overall, I'd hope that a change of scenery, as Sheryl Crow once said, a change would do you good, and a fresh start can help him find the score sheet more often and contribute more than the depth scorer that he has been in the past. Second to last, Parker Kelly. Kelly had a rough start to his season in Belleville, but found his game towards the end of the year, finishing with 14 points in his final 17 games with the B-Sens, along with his first NHL goal in his first NHL game. Nicely done, Mr. Kelly. He doesn't have the most polished offensive skill set. His playmaking vision and puck skills are below average. His shot is NHL worthy, though. Hence that first goal in his first game, I suppose. He's not a great skater, but he skates hard every shift and is always working. Defensively, his work ethic carries him to make the extra stride to get the job done. I think he's ultimately a third-line checking wing who can contribute to killing penalties. Lastly, we have Mark Castellick. Castellick is a defensive-minded, hit everything that moves kind of forward. His offensive toolkit isn't the fullest, but he has enough puck skills and playmaking vision to make occasional plays in tight. He can finish loose pucks around the net as well. His offensive value comes from his ability to win those board battles and find rebounds in front of the net. Defensively, he's incredibly physical and hits everything that moves, as I mentioned. I don't think he ends up more than a bruising checking line forward who chips in depth scoring, but there's still time for his game to develop. Those are the wingers and the centermen. Let's talk the D-men, the blue liners. Shawnee, what do the defensemen look like for the Belleville Senators this coming season?
Well, a lot of them are different from last year's team, but there are a couple holdovers, one being Jonathan Aspero, as he has offensive skills, but he doesn't make the most of them in my estimation. He's a solid skater, but doesn't join the rush or come off the blue line as often as I'd like to see, and seems to take conservative approaches with the puck on his stick in the offensive zone. When we previewed Abbotsford, we talked about Jet Wu and possession pucks versus attacking pucks. And like Jet Wu, I think he turns too many attacking pucks into possession pucks. He has good puck skills and playmaking vision that shows up in flashes, but I think there's more there. Defensively, he's very aggressive defending his blue line in transition and is solid enough in his own end. While not the most visible player, he's reliable, but looks to be trusted this season for a larger role, which should go okay. But I'm a little nervous if I'm a B-Sens fan putting him as their number one defenseman. Colby Williams is a defensive defenseman. His in-zone defense is much better than his transition defense, as he's not the best skater and so-so at defending his blue line. In zone, he's got above average defensive awareness paired with a good stick. He's not terribly physical, but won't shy away from the battles along the boards. Offensively, he's not that useful in transition and will often go glassing out when he had more time to collect a loose puck and survey the play in front of him instead of a rim around or just off the glass. His puck skills are about average, but he's not a skilled playmaker or shooter. He's best paired with an offensive partner who is more likely to join the rush and contribute on the score sheet as he sticks to defending. Lastly, Thompson's game has evolved a lot over the past few years as he's recognized more of the give and take risks that come with being an offensive-minded defenseman. Thompson used to be a strong skating offense-only forward offensive-only defenseman who took a lot of risks with the puck. He's dialed that back a lot, though, some of which I think may be overcorrecting, but time will tell. Lassie now plays a much more reserved game and manages the puck a lot better. Naturally, some of his offensive production has gone down with this change. However, his defensive game has made big strides forward. He defends the blue line well and uses his strong skating to keep pressure on opposing puck carriers in his own zone. His offensive skill set isn't the most impressive, as he lacks puck skills or playmaking vision that moves the needle past average, but he does have a solid shot and is a threat for one-timers on the power play. I think he's best suited for middle pair to start, and hopefully with some AHL seasoning, he'll be able to balance his offensive tendencies with sound puck management. I really want the defensive pairing, though, of Lassie Thompson and Jacob Bernard-Docker this season for two reasons. Number one, their skill set could be a solid shutdown tandem that provides some offensive upside, and their handedness being a lefty and a righty complements each other. Second, the nickname Dog Brothers for the pair just is right there, and it fits so well. Beethoven and Lassie just coming together for a crossover. I like it. And Bernard Docker's game, though, is almost purely defensive. He's not great in defending his blue line, as he has decent skating, but lacks the killer instinct to attack plays in the neutral zone. He doesn't get beat in transition, but he gives up the blue line a little too easily for my taste. His in-zone defense is remarkable, though. He's physical and will lay the body, but he's also cerebral and can pick off dangerous passes. Offensively, he has high-end shot velocity and uses it not to just score, but to set up tips. He rarely leaves the point, though, despite decent skating, and isn't very mobile. He's also bad in transition, will often throw pucks glassing out that simply just aren't necessary. He's not a playmaker in zone either, as he rarely uses the threat of a shot to set up teammates. Instead, he just shoots. As a shutdown defenseman and solid penalty killer, though, he has value, but there's a lot of development in his game that needs to happen before he takes steps forward in his progress as a professional hockey player. Still, though, Dog Brothers. Make it happen. All right, those are the defensemen we are going to talk about. There are more we could discuss, but, you know, we want to try and keep this as reasonably lengthed as possible. Cece, tell me about the voodoo, and then we will get to outcomes.
Yes, we go to the Dog Brothers, the canine siblings, and Lassie being the U.S. Canadian border collie. And we talk about those netminders. Like I said, Joey Decord, picked up by the Seattle Kraken, probably going to spend some time over in Charlotte playing. But since the B-Sens played, 6 or 7 goaltenders last year, all 3 of them that we're going to be covering at least got a game in, or a game or 2 in with the Senators last year, the Belleville Senators, I should say. Let's first start with Philip Gustafsson. Although there were a few ups and downs along the way, Gustafsson looked the part of an NHL goalie at times. His NHL starts went well, but not well enough to convince Ottawa to not sign Anton Forsberg to back up Matt Murray, which is a choice. While I think others have more upside, I think the son of Gustav is the best at stopping pucks in Belleville right now. He's got solid movemental and technical structure and reads the play and tracks the puck at high levels. He's not the most athletic, but he can make up for that with his movement and his tracking. He should be able to be the de facto number 1 in Belleville this season, looking to build off of a small but solid season last year in North America. Second, we've got Kevin Mandolese. Mandolese struggled in limited action last season as life comes at you fast when pros are shooting pucks at you and not 17-year-olds. However, I think Mandolese can get up to speed with the AHL and make use of what is a solid skill set. He moves well, he tracks the puck well at a high level, and his athleticism, unfortunately, isn't the greatest, though. Still, there is enough there to be a quality starting goaltender in Belleville this season for the Mandolesian. That was a bit of a stretch, but go with me on that.
No,
Lastly,
that's good, actually. I like it. The Mandolesian?
The Mandolesian. This is the way. Lastly, Matt Sogard. In limited action in Belleville last season, the Madman looked solid in net. He has an enormous frame at 6'7", and he has the athleticism of a much smaller goalie, which is downright scary. He struggled with puck tracking and focus as he lets in some soft goals more often than you'd like to see. He has all the tools to be an outstanding goalie, though, and with some more development in his mental skills, he could be a stud goalie for years to come, but there's a lot of work between here and there. Covered forwards. covered defensemen, covered goalies. It's time for the outcomes. Sean, what's the best case scenario for the Belleville Senators this season?
Well, I suppose the best case scenario is already out the window with Angus Crookshank on IR for what is likely the majority of this season, hence why he is not appearing in this preview. But should guys like Agazino and Aube continue to be weapons in the AHL and guys like Cole Sherwood and Lassie Thompson take steps forward, this could be a competitive bunch. Best case scenario, they finish with 80 points and a 55.78% points percentage. That's third place in the division.
Those who were responsible for writing up Angus Crookshank's preview have been sacked, and those responsible for those been sacked have also been sacked. So let's talk worst case scenario. While there's interesting talent in Belleville, if Agazino or Aube get called up for Aube came to me. If Agazino or Aube get called up for spot duty, the dip behind them is not pretty. If Gustafson goes, there's a lot unproven net mining behind him, and things could get dicey fast as the division looks to be competitive around the middle of the pack there. Worst case scenario, the B-Sens finish with 72 points for a even 50% points percentage, and unfortunately last in the division. So let's get back into the middle of the spectrum here. Let's talk the most likely case, and remember, it's only a modal.
The model projects Belleville for 75.23 points and a 52.24% points percentage. That's a sixth place finish in the North Division and still a playoff spot in this new system, aka cash grab. I think that's a fair landing spot for them here, and I'm going to stick by the model for the first time in this preview of Canada and say 75 points, give or take, 52.24% points percentage, and a sixth place finish is probably about right for this team. I think they're scrappy and competitive like last year, but they lack some of the firepower you'd like to see.
Well, that's it for the North Division. And that is it for episode 50, the half-century mark for the Calder Farmstead. I wish I had some party poppers and a kazoo or something, maybe a little hat, but let's save that for episode 100, shall we? That's it for the show. Like I said, thank you for watching and or listening in whatever platform you're consuming our content from. The Calder Farmstead is part of the Full Press Radio Network. You can listen to this and a number of other great hockey, sports, and sports entertainment programs at www.fullpresscoverage.com. Just click the podcast drop-down menu in the top right portion of the website and enjoy. And once again, with all those options, we thank you for tuning into this, the Calder Farmstead podcast.
If you guys are enjoying the Calder Farmstead podcast, and why wouldn't you be? I think we're a lot of fun. Please make sure you subscribe so you get episodes in a timely fashion. Also, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, not Apple Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, please rate and review the podcast. Or if you're watching it on YouTube, like the video, comment on what you thought of the episode, and click the little bell. Actually, just go nuts. Click all the buttons on YouTube. See what happens. But doing so will help others find the show, and your views will help us improve it. You can also follow the show on social media at Calder Farmstead on Twitter and at The Calder Farmstead on Instagram and Facebook. We're also doing a contest and giving away 3 free AHL TV team packages. Links to all of that and more can be found in our link tree, which is scrolling along the bottom of the YouTube here if you haven't seen it already. But if you're on an audio version somewhere, it is linktr.ee/The Calder Farmstead. Big thanks to Adrian Drake, whose wedding I'm going to tomorrow, or technically today. But he made our theme music. You can find him on social media at AD_dysfunction. That's DYSFUNCTION. So we can make music for you too. CC, where can people find you?
Well, before I tell you that, I want to say congratulations to Adrian. Yeah. Good on you, getting hitched. And I'm CC Hockley. You can find me at Full Press Hockey, representing them on Twitter at FPC_AHL, and at my personal Twitter account at CCHawk. That's SEESEEHAWK. Majority of my tweets are about hockey, but hey, I've got opinions about music, about pro wrestling, about the world in general. Hell, last night I tweeted out a thank you and feeling grateful for friends, for family, my girlfriend, my home, my podcast co-host. I specifically put that in there. So Sean, I am grateful for you. So hopefully if you follow along on my Twitter account, It's not going to be bullshit for you. If it keeps me interested, it's not going to be bullshit for you. So check out my writing on the Full Press Coverage Network at www.fullpresshockey.com. Enough about me. Sean, where can people find you?
I'm Sean O'Brien, and you can find me on Twitter at Sean O'Brien 81. That's SeanObrien 81. I'm also on Instagram at Sean O'Brien _81. If you go to Sean O'Brien 81 on Instagram, that's a different guy. You can find my stats work on Tableau at bit.ly/datadump-and-chase, bit.ly/datadump-and-trace. Please dump and chase responsibly. That is all lowercase, all one word. CC, I'm exhausted. It's after midnight. Please take us home.
Yes, let's end this. Episode number 50 is in the books and closed. For Sean O'Brien, I'm CC Hockley. Thank you all for tuning in. We always appreciate it. And as always, keep your stick on the ice.